again, welcome to Yahushua's Call. And all of you out there subscribing, I just want to stop for a moment and say thank you. And for the encouraging remarks you've been making, we are so grateful. And may Yah bless you immensely for your encouragement. Today, we're going to, I have another fireside chat, I call them, because we need just ones that Yah has sent to just sit down with us and just give us without hype the wonderful truths of the Word of Yah, especially now in this great season of the awakening of Israel and Yehudah. And so at this time, I want to pray and ask you to join in this prayer. It is found in 1 Kings, the 8th chapter, and the 28th through the 30th verse. As King David prays, so do we. Yet have thou respect unto the prayer of thy servant, and to his supplication, O Most High, to hearken unto the cry, and to the prayer which thy servant prayeth before thee today, that thine eyes may be open toward this house night and day, even toward the place of which thou hast said, my name shall be there, that thou mayest hearken unto the prayer which thy servant shall make toward this place, and hearken thou to the supplication of thy servant and of thy people Yisrael, when they shall pray toward this place. And hear thou in heaven thy dwelling place, and when thou hearest, forgive. Zamen. Today's topic is another Yahushua's Call. It is a topic, it is a message, it is prophetic in nature. I want to first start out by saying I am not a prejudiced person. No. I have the love of Yahushua in my heart. But oftentimes when you speak truth, there are those who may find offense. When Yahushua walked the earth, many found offense in his words. It is no different. The apostles were martyred for offense. The prophets of old were murdered and beaten for offense. What is the offense? Truth. I promise you, to the best of my understanding, I will always give you truth. And to that we began with this title. And again, one more thing. I am not here to try to convince or to make someone believe what I'm saying. I'm only here to offer you knowledge. If the Holy Spirit, the Rach Hakodesh, is in your heart and is working with you in this most momentous season of gathering his people from the four corners of the earth, you will hear. And for those who don't hear, it is not in you or your season to hear. And that is all right too. So with that, we begin. And the title tonight is Coming Out of Egypt Again. Or in other words, the second Exodus of Yah's people. If we go to Genesis, the 15th chapter, and we go to the 12th verse, we're going to read 12 through 14. And it says, and when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abram, and lo, an horror of great darkness fell upon him. And he said unto Abram, know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge. And afterward shall they come out with great substance. This promise is the promise that the Most High made to Abram. And as we get further into this teaching, you will find not only was this a sign of Abram for the coming Moses and the exodus of the children of Israel from Egypt, this is also a momentous time. And we're here in America, we reached 400 years in 2019. And I believe it is significant, beginning with the eclipse and with all the things that are coming upon this earth. This is a signal to us to wake up, thou that sleepeth, out of your sleep. For Yah is calling his people to do, especially those of the tribe of Judah, to call out the 12 tribes of the other 11 tribes, to wake them up, to prepare them for what is coming upon the earth and our Messiah, our King's coming. In Exodus 12:40, before we read it, I just want to go back over what I just said. You are living in a nation now that is afflicting you. I know many of you would say, well, I'm not afflicted. Well, you really are. And I'm going to prove that today for those who are not wanting to see it. But you have a promise that you will be set free. All right. Exodus 12:40 says, now the sojourning, and I want you to remember that word, sojourning, all right, of the children of Israel who dwelt in Egypt was 430 years. Again, now the sojourning. Now, sojourning didn't mean necessarily that they were always slaves. It meant that they sojourned. They had different experiences, but they were there in essence for quite a while. But let me explain it a little further. Deuteronomy 28:68 says this. Let us identify ourselves first. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. It says again. So there was a first exodus, but it was not, Moses led that first exodus. Yah delivered his people from physical Egypt, physical bondage. And he's going to do the same again. Let's go on. It says, thou shalt see it no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bond men and women, and no man shall buy you. No one should get you out of this circumstance. If we look at Paul in Galatians 3:16-17, it says, now to Abraham and his seed were the promises made. To his seed. He saith, not, and two seeds, or plural seeds, as of many, but as of one. And to thy seed, which people don't understand, is the Messiah. Yahusha, the Messiah, the Hakodesh lets us know this in our hearts. And this I say, that the covenant that was confirmed before of Yah in Mashiach, the law, which was 430 years after, cannot disannul, that it should make the promise of none effect. The promises in Yah are yea and zaman. See, most people believe that the children of Israel were slaves in Egypt for 430 years. But based on the evidence shown, the Israelites were actually in Egypt 215 years. Well, let's look how we get to 430 years. Abraham received the promise, and that was, he was about 75 years old. And if you move on, it was actually, you can calculate Jacob 60 years later, and then you go on into when Jacob passed, all Israel arrived in, well, he was 130 when all Israel arrived in Egypt. That's exactly 215 years. But now the sojourn between that time and the time that Moses received the law on Mount Sinai was exactly 215 years. So when you put these two segments together, it equals 430 years. Now, why am I bringing this up to you? Because we are approaching here in America a time of 400 years next year. And we must prepare ourselves between now and when Yahushua says so, very shortly I know, to make our exodus. But meantime, there is a spiritual exodus that we must make first. We must make a change in our minds, allow the change to come through the Spirit. Now let me explain. We're not talking about a physical at this moment. There will be a physical change. And I would not be surprised if it is within those 30 years. But right now, it's not a physical change we're talking about, but a spiritual move. A spiritual change, a spiritual move in preparation of the coming of the Messiah. The first step in the process, now there's going to be a process, saints, but if you don't know who you are, you won't even know how to prepare. But we're going to teach you that today, much as I can. We're going to try to do 4 series so that you can get all the information involved. We have steps we have to make. And the first step in the process is you have to know the truth. John 8:32 and 36 says, "And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." 36 says, "If the Son, therefore, shall make you free, you shall be free indeed." So it's the truth I offer you today that is to make you free. Not half truth, not a quarter of the truth like we've been given, but all the truth, as much as lies within us by the Rach Hakodesh, the Holy Spirit. Let me explain something to you. Our ancestors came to America through men stealers. If you go to 1 Timothy 1:10, it'll tell you men stealers. They are people that kidnap. They're called kidnappers. Though we were not kids, some of us were young, but many were elderly and old, not elderly, but young, strapping men and women. They brought them here on the transatlantic slave trade in chains as slaves. We didn't choose this country to live in it, though we respect the laws. We did not choose this country. This country bought stolen goods and made a fortune. We still live in the land of our captivity today, if you understand who I'm talking to. I'm talking to you Israelites, especially those of the household, the tribe of Yehudah. And though many taught their citizenship, we must remain aware, because many have forgotten the way they carry themselves, that the majority of our people are yet living here in the land of our captivity. That has not changed. Under troublesome and oppressive conditions. We have been here, like I said, close to 400 years as slaves, that is. Many of us were here before slavery, before Columbus, before any white settlement, but that's another story. There seems to be 30 years to go from this, that we sojourn as a people, but not always necessarily. Because you see, in sojourn, we read that there are slavery, the institution of slavery, and a semi-slavery, and that it will probably go on for another 30 years. But I want to express knowledge because some people may not understand that we've been here 400 years. So let me go to the bill to celebrate 400 years of Black history in the United States House of Representatives on May 15th of 2007. A rare display of bipartisan in Congress, the United States House of Representatives voted to establish a commission to examine 400 years of African American history. Bill H.R. 1242 is designed to develop and carry out activities throughout the United States to commemorate the 400th anniversary arrival of the Africans in English colonies in Point Comfort, Virginia in 1619. Representative Bobby Scott, Democrat from Virginia, sponsored the bill in the House, and Senators Tim Kaine and Mark Warner, both Democrats, sponsored the bill in the Senate, where it's waiting to be passed. Where that is, we'll have to find out. I want you to know that you're still in the land of your captivity, and that you are treated almost as a slave would. And let me explain to you that, because some people say, no, I'm not. I have a good job. I have a beautiful car. I have a lovely job. Okay, that's very good, because there is a type of semi-slavery, which means you're still under control of the powers that be. Let me read to you the well, I'm not going to read the whole Emancipation Proclamation. You need to read it, by Abraham Lincoln. The Emancipation Proclamation, or the Proclamation 95, where we were said to have been set free from slavery, was a presidential proclamation and executive order. It was never a law established. This was a presidential executive order. It was issued by President Abraham Lincoln, January 1st, 1863. The proclamation ordered the freedom of all slaves in 10 states, because it was issued under the president's authority. The president's authority, not the House, not the Senate, to suppress rebellion or war powers. It necessarily excluded areas not in rebellion, but still applied to more than 3 million of the 4 million slaves. The proclamation was based on the president's constitutional authority as commander-in-chief of the armed forces. It was not a law. Again, I'm quoting. It is not today a law passed by Congress, which means it could be repudiated at any moment. The proclamation did not compensate the owners, did not outlaw slavery, and did not grant citizenship to the ex-slaves called freemen. It made the eradication of slavery an explicit war goal, in addition to the goal of reuniting the Union. That speaks for itself. Now you might say, well, there was a 13th Amendment. Well, let me tell you what that was. The 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution abolished slavery and involuntary servitude, except as punishment for a crime. So it only abolished slavery except for a crime. On April 8, 1864, the Senate passed an amendment to abolish slavery. After one unsuccessful vote and extensive legislative maneuvering by the Lincoln administration, the House followed suit on January 31st, 1865. The 13th Amendment was rarely cited in later case law, but has been used to strike down peonage and some race-based discrimination as badges or incidents of slavery. The 13th Amendment applies to the actions of private citizens, while the 14th and 15th Amendments apply only to state actors. What am I saying? I'm saying America never abolished slavery. That's what I'm saying. And the HuffPost agrees. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. Listen to this. Except as a punishment for a crime. That's the, so slavery is over except for punishment of a crime. This phase gets ignored in America's telling of its slavery story. I'm going to tell it today. The 13th Amendment did not abolish slavery, but rather moved it from the plantation to the prison. In 2015, the 2 million largely black people incarcerated in America are legally considered slaves under the Constitution. How can we have our brothers and our sisters enslaved and sit here and say we're free? You can't. You're not free. You're free only in one, Yahushua, and we'll get to that. As a result, they can and are forced to work for pennies an hour with the profits. Listen to this, why the jails are so full of our young black people. As a result, they can and are forced to work for pennies an hour with the profits going to those counties, states, private corporations, including Target, Revlon, Whole Foods, and many others. In fact, there are more black people enslaved today, my friends, saints, than it was in 1800. Some more convincing? Do you know the third verse of the Star-Spangled Banner that you so proudly sing? I'll read it to you. And where is that band who so vauntingly swore that the havoc of war and the battle's confusion, a home and a country should leave us no more? Their blood has washed out their foul footsteps' pollution. No refuge could save the hireling and slave from the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave. And the Star-Spangled Banner in trumpet doth wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. And when they say free, they don't mean you Hebrews. Time is getting away from us, but I'm going to try to bring a few of these and continue on our second recording. And still, they don't believe that they are living in the land of their captivity. Well, let's look at a few things, because some of you need to be convinced. You see, if you give a few trinkets out, that's all the slaves wanted, was a few trinkets. Remember Moses and the children of Israel? As they were walking around out there in the desert, getting to where they're supposed to be getting to, should have took but a few days, and it took what, 7 years? What, 70 years? How much did it take? It took quite a while. Meantime, what was going on is judgment, because they had a slave mentality. They could not move from one place to the other without giving poor Moses a hard time to go. We're going to get into a lot of how they acted and reacted as we get into more programs. But I want to let you know about the food here in America. And food is how it's directed to African Americans and to our neighborhood with nutritional defects. This is an Environment of Pittsburgh study. Nutritious food, fruits, nuts, vegetables, has been shown to be protective against diabetes, heart disease, types of cancers. African Americans bear a disproportionate amount of burden of mortality resulting from diabetes, heart disease, and cancer. And nationwide, African American adults' obesity rates are higher than those of white adults. Why? It used to be a mixed area. This is a group that is being signaled out. When we have a mixed area, the food seems to get better. But when it goes all the way to mostly poor, disenfranchised blacks, and some now brown, it is no longer mixed. Most people live in the position or the circumstance of poor staff and poor food quality, poorer food quality. A store's clientele even changes from friendly to not so friendly. Fox Chapel is Fox Channel. Fox Chapel, the majority of the clientele, upper class people, are nice. And not only are their produce and their meats and cheeses better and fresher, they can get their problems, their complaints resolved at a much faster rate. That's just one. I've got to give you so many when you come back on show 2. I want to tell you that you're not out of the land of your captivity, that you need to wake up, that you got to stop being put asleep. Paul wrote, "Wake up thou that sleepeth." You've got to know who you are and who you are in Yahushua. You've got to know this so that you can begin to prepare for the second great Exodus. And I'm going to show you how, before the end of these series, how we're going to walk out of Egypt. So don't you forget to tune back in to our next broadcast to learn about that. And you pray that prayer of David that I prayed earlier in 1 Kings 8:28 and to 30. And be on alert and be aware of whose you are. Until then, I want to let you know, Yahuah HaMashiach, Yahushua HaMashiach loves you, and he died for you. And you can be a Hebrew Israelite all you want, and I'm hoping you'll come to that knowledge. But you must be, can't you see? You gotta be born again. Never forget that, my friends, my brothers and my sisters, the brethren of the Most High. Until next time, bye-bye.